Hello and welcome to today's episode of the On the Up podcast brought to you from Moneypenny. I'm your host Dan Marshall, and today I'm joined by Paul and Simon from Spica Technologies to talk about all things workplace tech. Paul, Simon, great to have you with us today. If you could kick us off with a bit of an intro to yourselves and your business, and we'll go from there.
Sure. I'm Simon Hilton. I head up new business at Spica Technologies. So I've been there now over 5 years. Came from a bit of a service compliance and FM background, worked for Mighty previously, and then came over to the technology and software side, which has been enlightening, to say the least, and very interesting. Our company, Spica Technologies, we produce a workplace experience app and platform, which is GemX. So the app is all about providing the employees a seamless experience of interacting with the building, services, people, colleagues in a workplace, so that whole street to seat experience. And the platform is where the management stakeholders will go in and be able to configure and shape how the workplace is, whether it's hybrid working, or use the data to drive operational efficiencies.
Hi, I'm Paul Mundy. I've been with Spike just over 2 years now. So I've come from a background of always doing new business, always dealt with sort of FMs. I've come through a sort of cleaning and hygiene path onto technology a few years back. I deal with new clients, so helping people obviously look at what existing systems they've got, help them understand how they can consolidate them together. Helping a lot of people having challenges around having lots and lots of different systems, especially legacy systems since COVID. So they need to understand how they can bring all that together into a single pane of glass solution.
Amazing. Sounds great. So we've got two people very well informed to talk to us about tech in the workplace, which is perfect. And I think that's where a good place to start. So as we were talking before the recording is about what makes a great office, what makes a great environment, and everyone always mentions tech and how tech's becoming more important. So it'd be great to kind of hear your thoughts on just the role of tech in workspaces now, and maybe you mentioned, Paul, obviously COVID as well, how that might have spearheaded some change or pushed things forward a bit more quickly, I imagine, as well.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because obviously if we take it back to a society level, we use technology all the time and have done so, whether that's to administrate our lives in an easier way, whether it's to share and keep in touch with certain contacts, or even for our own health and well-being, we always use tech. So the workplace should be no different, really. And if anything, that has kind of been slow or slower, I think, to adopt technology. But it's all about really making that workplace a good environment for people to work productively in, to work in a healthy way, and to have the optimum experience that they can, so that they would hopefully be well engaged with their workplace.
So I think the workplace has massively changed in the last 10 years, especially. I remember my first office before I went to uni was at British Gas 25 years ago, and it was all grey desks, grey buildings. There was a coffee machine. The cups were so thin it burnt your fingers. There was no consideration about any kind of experience for people. And I think the last 5 years especially, but 10 years, it started to change, where it used to be tech was a sort of, you're nice to have, a bit of a gimmick. What can it do? Whereas now I think it really is an enabler to help people not only do their jobs, but be more efficient and more productive. So the more technology you can put in that can help people with productivity. But again, there's a limit to it. It's got to be thought out. It's got to be put in correctly. So there's no point having something without thinking about, is it going to add value to the people? Are they going to use it? What's it going to do? Is it going to help productivity? Because I think there was a bit of a race just to get everything in during COVID, anything we can, technology to help us. And there's now, as I mentioned before, a lot of people with legacy systems now that they aren't being used. They don't really have a champion that's getting them. They haven't got buy-in from the people and so on as well. So a really well thought out tech project can be massively helpful. But again, it's got to be rolled out correctly as well. And like you said, nowadays, with the event of AI coming in and all the different things that can really massively help productivity, it's almost a no-brainer not to try and employ technology to help you grow, keep your people, but also give them a much better experience. Because I think we've had a couple of conversations today on experience, and from my point of view, if you give your people a good experience, they're going to give your customers a good experience, and it all goes hand in hand together.
hopefully you guys have seen that in our office today, is a real thing that we do at Moneypenny is you try and create a great environment so that people can enjoy being at work and provide a great service because of what they're around. And I think a lot of businesses miss that sometimes, don't they? But the first thing that struck out to me, Simon, was you mentioned, in some ways businesses have been slow to adopt some of this kind of technology. So I'm interested to hear, like, the kind of people you're talking to at the moment. Like, what are they coming to you and talking about when it comes to tech? Are there specific challenges they're trying to fix, or are they just looking for advice as well?
I think it's a multitude of requests and requirements, really. But I think the key underlying one now, we've come to realize, is that workplaces are more flexible and need to be more flexible. With the onset of hybrid working, that genie was let out the bottle and is never going back. So even with large organizations mandating returns to the office, the majority will still probably have a hybrid schedule. And that requires flexibility, and then technology can enable that and help with that, because it needs to be quick to pivot and be able to adapt to different strategies. And that's the great thing about technology. So I think that hybrid conundrum is one of the core things that a lot of organizations are wrestling with at the moment. So it's still very new, and they're trying to settle into a pattern of what works best for our people. And we also have to think that, as well as organizations, the risks of them operating in silos. So the IT team have got their objectives, the HR team have got their FM, etc. We also have to consider the different groups within a workplace. And technology, again, can facilitate that kind of variable, because the way a certain department, team, group of people will interact with their workplace and the expectations that they have of it will be different from another team or another group of people. So having that variance within the technology as well is really important to be able to facilitate that.
Just to add on that as well, talking about slow to adopt, but especially I think COVID has really brought into focus the actual office and what space you've got. And a lot of people tried to get some technology in to gather data and so on. A lot of these projects sort of didn't go very well, because there was one well-known bank where the CEO mentioned they were monitoring people at their desks, which obviously went down like a lead balloon and so on as well. And I think a lot of the challenge we face is that people have been burnt before with technology that's not been deployed properly, or they've not got the best use out of it, or, and what you find is sometimes it might be run. For instance, you might have a big organization that is partnered with an FM provider. The FM provider then might be driving the occupancy data, but between them, they're not actually getting any value out of that data, or the FM provider changes, the targets change, and that whole thing falls flat on its face. So then what you're finding is the stakeholders we're dealing with are then sometimes a bit more skeptical about, actually, how do I undertake an occupancy project? What data am I going to get out of it? Or I've got all this data, but what do I do with it? So again, there's collecting data and using technology to do that, but actually then, is it going to answer the questions you need about your real estate? Because I think before the pandemic, was anybody really gathering occupancy data? You see a bit out there, but nothing really that's sort of hard and fast, if that makes sense. Whereas now, the focus is on, well, I've got all this real estate, which maybe people weren't even thinking about before, and they don't really know how full their offices are. But using that technology as an enabler to create better spaces by actually getting the space you need, rather than having all this huge amount of real estate that you don't actually need and you're paying for, if that makes sense as well.
100%. Yeah, it's interesting because I think you talk about the occupancy, and one of the things that you see as well, I think, in this sort of post-COVID hybrid world as well, as businesses talking about downsizing offices because they don't need as much space because of how it's now used. But pre-COVID, people probably wouldn't have thought like that, because they were just like, well, people are here 5 days a week. They probably, again, didn't think about occupancy data, because it was just like, well, people are here 5 days a week. And it's now all these new challenges are kind of pushing those questions up for people, aren't they? So
it's been a really interesting journey for myself personally. So when I first came into Spica, occupancy was a use case, let's say, but it was more about, desk to people ratios, how a certain space is being occupied and utilized. And now it's come full circle again, in that occupancy is, as you mentioned before, one of the big requirements that people come to us with is to understand it, but from a different perspective, because it is like, well, there's less people in the offices now, so we just need to understand if it's coming up for a lease renewal or we're thinking about space, how best to utilize that. So it's been circular, I think, on that one, but for different reasons.
Yeah, there's an efficiency angle, cost efficiency, and there's like a growth angle as well, right? If you know your business is going to grow 3x in 5 years, then your space requirements are different, aren't they? And I want to come back to that as well, the staff and the people, because I think you both mentioned that in the intro there as well. And I'm interested in how you guys find businesses approach their people when it comes to implementing tech. Because again, you mentioned there's issues sometimes adopting tech, with the people adopting it, with it working, with the business being behind it. So how do your clients kind of broach that side of things, of getting their people involved and getting that engagement, I guess, throughout the onboarding as well?
I read a stat before it came, which was a McKinsey report, and it said that 70% of digital transformation projects will fail because of poor user adoption and integration. And that's a huge amount when you think about it. So I think that's a kind of key element there, is the user adoption. So who are they? They're the people. And so often, sometimes businesses, even if they've got that good strategic approach of bringing together the main stakeholders, the IT groups, the FM groups, the real estate groups, and aligning it with a business objective, let's say, so that everyone is singing from the same hymn sheet, then that's good. But sometimes even then, the actual people using the technology get left behind, and maybe there isn't that great consultation there. And also a thought process of, well, okay, we've got tech and we think it can solve this problem, but we haven't analyzed that workflow of where that tech will be used along that journey. And sometimes there's a failure there. So I think a key thing is, one, to bring in the users, and that could be through discovery workshops, where the people providing the tech get access to the employee groups and be able to ask them questions, and that, because sometimes what is happening at a higher level and their strategic objective and their view might be different from the actual experience and the people and what they want from a workplace. So I think discovery workshops are definitely a good approach, and we've seen that with a couple of our bigger clients, that they've took the time to allow us to do that and invest in that, and it's really worked well.
Yeah, no, agree on that. I think exactly what you said. I think the engagement from staff is critical, because what if, I mean, I saw a talk for an IWFM a while ago with Simone Fenton Jarvis, and I always reel out this stat because I think it's fantastic. Is the CEO in a lot of organisations is only aware of 4% of the issues on the floor. It's one that's out there quite a lot, but if you don't engage with your staff and your people, then how can you know what they actually want and what potential issues they've got? Because a lot of the time it's like, well, we want to deploy the tech because we want to, let's say, rationalize desks. Whereas, we work with a couple of partners who work doing surveys, qualitative data surveys, quantitative data surveys, both ways of gathering the data from the people, but analyzing it and fully understanding. Because what you might find is a lot of the challenges that people are facing can be solved with technology. But if you're not aware of those challenges, then, because, it's the little frustrations we speak to people about when you start looking on the floors. I can't find an available meeting room. There's no single person booths available. I've got to walk around looking for this or for that, or I can't find to sit with the people I want to sit, or the area I want to sit at, which again, there's simple bits of technology that can be used to deploy and to resolve that. We had a client who had a lot of noise from the floor about phone booths. They were going to spend a huge sum of money and deploy new phone booths across one of their buildings. And what we said to them is, why don't we actually make them a bookable space within the app? So all of a sudden, all the people can see when they're available. And then we put a sensor in each one, gathered the actual data from them, and all of a sudden, they're actually less than 50% utilized. But people were just seeing the ones. So then what you're using is some data and giving the people a better experience, because they can always find the booth they want. So they've got a better experience. The organization has got a huge saving, and you've got that data going forward that you're actually making some decisions with as well. So again, it's looking what that problem is with the people and finding a solution to solve it.
That data is definitely key, because whether it's quantitative data, qualitative data, to actually discover a pain point or a friction point in a workplace, you need data. Then to identify, well, which problem do we want to solve, you need data. And then to measure the success of how well you're solving that problem, you need data. So I think that is a key underlying thing there.
Yeah, it's really interesting as well, because I think a lot of people's perception and thoughts on the workplace just comes from opinions as well, doesn't it? Like, oh, it's too hot here, it's too busy there, like that kind of stuff is all very kind of individually biased. But if you've got the data to back some of that stuff up, you can obviously make better and more informed decisions and to fix things.
I just think on that, just to jump in, we've got one of our partners who uses any kind of data, any kind of written data to pull workplace experience insights. So with Audium, they can analyze FM tickets and look at what that data, not just what the ticket is for, but the actual text in there, and pull out, they use an AI algorithm to pull out insights into it. And when you speak to FMs, the most common ticket is too hot, too cold in any building. So, giving people an app with a sensor in a building that tells you the temperature, and you can book in somewhere that's the right temperature for it. I mean, my wife always complains about her office being too cold. And I said, well, what you need to do is get them to get a booking system that can let you book somewhere that's got the right temperature.
Oh, one of the things I think is interesting here as well is just how aware people are of what tech solutions are available to them as well, right? I think that can be the challenge sometimes, can't it? Of like understanding like what cool tech another business is using to create a better workspace. So how do you find kind of people become aware of that kind of stuff at the minute? Is it just somebody with a problem thinking, I really need to solve this, I need to find it, or are there kind of better ways of people seeing what tech is available out there right now?
Yeah, I mean, again, in my time of being at Spica, I've seen a lot of competition and solutions enter the market. So there is a lot of probably information for people to try and absorb, and it's very difficult for them to make a choice, maybe. And of course, those people are on different parts of that maturity scale of where they are with workplace tech. Like, we don't really know what we want. We know we want something to make things better. Others are very far down the line, and they're thinking about, well, we've got this tech and we've provided this experience, but now we want it to integrate even more and provide, more of a single pane of glass. So it really depends on where those organizations are on that maturity curve. But I think the key thing is that, try and find the first thing is to, what problem are we trying to solve? So forget about the tech. Let's focus on the problem. And then that way we know the kind of technology that we need to deploy to help with that problem. When they get to that point and they're talking to vendors, it's really important to make sure that those vendors have got experience of scaling that technology. There's a lot that can put very impactful logos on their websites and things like this, but it's really delving into the detail as a buyer to understand, well, where have you got this deployed? If you are a multi-nation operation and there's different considerations there, then have you got experience of that? If you are having to integrate or potentially integrate systems, do they have experience of that? Can we easily get client references? And also just that whole experience thing, how embedded is that within there? And the flexibility of it's hard because you've got to try and think of future technologies as well and what's coming down the line. And we're seeing a lot of that with AI at the moment, of course. So it's, again, trying to be future-proof and thinking, well, how will this technology interact with that technology potentially in the future? So I feel for buyers sometimes it's very difficult.
Well, we'll echo that 100%. It is a minefield out there, and there's a lot of information and a lot of misinformation. And the thing is, like you said, I think what's also happening, especially in our space, is we're seeing a lot of different people pop up, for instance, offering a desk booking tool, people who've never done any kind of desk booking tool before, you often see maybe an AV company do it. They just pop in and they've got one there. And you see Zoom have now popped up. Obviously, their speciality is obviously video meetings. They now offer a booking tool to their corporate clients. So you're seeing that it's almost just as an add-on. And what we've found as well is we work with a bit of an ecosystem of partners who solve different needs for all our clients. So, what we don't want to try and do is reinvent the wheel. If there's something better out there, we'd rather partner with somebody and do that together, rather than adding something on when it's trying to add something on that's not going to be as good as something else out there, if that makes sense. So you got that, and that's again the struggle I think for buyers at the moment, because if you've got a big company like Zoom or like a Microsoft saying, well, we can do this now, and you've already got contracts with them, you've already got technology from them, it's sometimes the path of less resistance to use that. But what you might find is when you're using a huge company's product like that, it's not going to do what you need it to do. It's not going to be as configurable as you need, and so on as well. So again, you've got to assess, do we want to actually go with somebody who, yes, this is their bread and butter, or somebody who's just sort of shoehorned it on as an addition to what they've got, if that makes sense. So again, it makes that whole buyer's journey more and more tricky, if that makes sense as well.
It's a really good point on that configurability. So obviously, if you're buying a product from a very big provider, you're probably going to find that there will be less flexibility there in their roadmap and how willing they are to adapt their technology to your use cases. Because, big organization, this is it, this is the product, this is the roadmap, take it or leave it kind of thing. So we have actually worked with clients that like to work with us because we gave them that assurance that, hey, if you have a good idea, because workplaces are constantly evolving, constantly adapting, it needs to be flexible, it needs to be configurable, then we've got many examples where we've enhanced our product because of our customers' expectations. And then also we kind of facilitate our customers talking to each other because they want to share best practices. What's happening in your workplace, what's happening in your office, so that then they're starting to share ideas about how they've used the technology, different use cases they may have, which then invites more challenges for us and our software and our product team. And but yeah, so it's really interesting.
I think just to expand on that again a little bit, what a lot of the things is every organization out there is different. Not two law firms aren't the same, or two banks aren't the same. And I think the difference in each different organization means that people need something a bit more bespoke and configurable, if that makes sense. Because potentially, just because one thing fits for one financial organization, it might be completely different requirements, even though they're in the same industry. Their people might have completely different challenges, the way they actually work, their culture, and the way they've gone about things, because every business has started off fairly small and grown and grown and grown. So that means they've got different ways of working, different expectations, different client challenges as well, and what they need is the tech they employ in their business has got to work for them. And again, that might be completely different from someone next door who's pretty much the same. So that's part of the challenge as well, is making sure it's going to be a good fit with your partners as well and your suppliers.
Yeah, I always think it's an interesting dynamic when you think of like the Zoom example that you mentioned, where it's like they may have created a product that they kind of almost don't have the authority to create, in a sense, if that's not that they couldn't do that, but like that's not their world, right? And actually, if I'm buying a product, I kind of want to buy it from the person with the expertise. And as much as like Spica might be a technology business, but all the value add that I can get from talking to you about it, because that's what you guys live and breathe. And like you said about connecting your clients up as well, you don't get that with some of those bigger providers that are maybe gone, oh, we can build a cool tool like that and that will add a revenue stream for us. But sometimes I think people forget that actually you're not just buying tech from somebody, you are like getting their time and their help and their network as well to implement that properly as well. So
yeah, it's just again similar on that sort of thread as well, is what we've often seen out there as well is a lot of big corporates will have a big FM doing their total FM, their TFM contracts, and they will then rely on them to deploy technology for them. And when it's not in their hands, potentially, the FM provider may have their own partners they want to use, and that might not necessarily be the right fit for the organization. Plus, it might also mean that they don't have full control over how it's being deployed, and it can also create blockers as well. So sometimes it can work hand in hand and work really well, but obviously, if you add the extra layer in, it means there's obviously more cooks in the kitchen, so there's more things that could go wrong or not be as successful as it could be if it's deployed direct as well. So because of these big organizations, they're often either dealing through a consultant, through a partner, through, they won't often be their exact team who will be fully taking control of it, if that makes sense. And again, that can add maybe extra layers of challenge as it goes as well.
The other consideration there, I think, is obviously if there is that FM expectation to deliver that technology. I mean, we know that sometimes in bids that get delivered, that innovation is part of that. Well, we'll bring this to you in an attempt to win the FM contract. And obviously, FMs are specialists in FM. They're rarely specialists in software and technology and app and platform production. So they will probably have to rely on a third party in most instances. And then once that contract is over, what is the client left with? And that's the consideration that they have to think about. Is that's fine to go down that route, but always make sure that you are talking to the provider as well, because if anything does change, you want to know that, oh, I've got all this kit now and it's useless because the FM provider's changed hands and we have to start afresh.
Yeah, no, I guess there's a few things that we've spoken about that all connects into, like, making sure that people are on board. And if you lose the contractor in the middle of it, that can give your people an issue day to day. And also you mentioned about getting adoption and implementing things properly. If you're going through a consultant, you need to make sure that you've got all that knowledge in house as well, don't you? So that if consultants come and go, right, that's the nature of what they do. So you've got to have that support network in house for when the time comes. So yeah, as you were talking about, I think it is more important and ever becoming more important that you have those relationships with people that have the knowledge and of the technology, of the platforms, but also can connect you to share ideas as well, because that's probably how I think a lot of cool things get inbuilt into businesses generally, not necessarily just workplace tech, but it's hearing from somebody else what they've done and what's been successful for them. So if I'm implementing like a new marketing tool, for example, if I can speak to another client of that tool that's used it, that's almost like a better sales pitch and a better onboarding pitch than what that business I'm buying from can ever give me. So, but one of the other interesting things, you obviously mentioned AI, and we all talk about AI all the time as well these days. So interested to hear kind of how that's kind of filtering into workplace tech at the moment, and if that is having a kind of destabilizing effect? Is it supercharging development? Like, how's that impacting your industry?
It's really interesting. I mean, and it is obviously impacting our industry hugely. There's no denying that AI is going to change workplaces, and it will deliver benefits of making things more efficient, streamlining processes, providing health benefits, all of those kind of things. There's no doubt. So, it's here, it's coming, it's here to stay. The thing with AI is at Spica, we've kind of taken a bit of a, let's put the brakes on this approach, because we have seen a lot of people in the industry and competitors, it's a huge buzzword, putting AI on things. So first of all, we wanted to try and inform our clients and our prospects. If you're going to talk about AI, really dig into what is actually AI and not just clever algorithms, smart automation being dressed up as AI. So I think that's really key, because we've had that, a HVAC system can change, what's going on in a building based on occupancy and all this. Some people try and wrap that up into AI. It's just clever algorithms. So I think that's definitely something that we've said, like, if we're going to deliver AI, then it needs to be truly AI. But again, it comes back to, we see tenders and RFPs saying, like, what AI capabilities does your technology have? And you think, well, that's a really wide and generic question that probably hasn't had a lot of thought behind it, because they just you know, it's a buzz. We need to probably tick this box in assuring the stakeholders, yeah, it's got AI. So it goes back to, well, what is the problem you're trying to solve, you know? And if AI can truly help with that, that's great. But the further considerations with AI, of course, and we've seen it with, you know, privacy concerns, and that is to truly get that personalized experience, either from a company level or from a person level. There's a lot of sensitive data that probably has to go into that. And so there's huge privacy concerns with that. And the technology is new and it's changing so quickly. So if you're putting your eggs in a basket of, well, we use this AI technology, then those people have to become experts in that technology. And then it might be replaced again very quickly by something else. So it's so fast and moving that we've kind of just wanted to put the brakes on it a little bit and just understand it completely and see where it can truly add value.
I think I like your approach though, because I think there are a lot of, again, coming at this from you know, I work in marketing, and marketing tools very much these days are like this AI feature, and you're like, is it actually an AI feature, or is it just like ChatGPT on top of it that's doing something that, but actually making sure there's like something substantial behind that AI and that it is true AI, not just an algorithm, I think is quite a unique approach, I would say. Because I think everyone's doing the other thing, aren't they? They're saying, yeah, we've got AI. It's that kind of thing to get more people hooked, isn't it? So
I think the big part is going to be in the future is crunching data, and you know, the research part of it. But again, I think people are cautious because of, as Simon mentioned, privacy concerns. You don't want to start feeding mass amounts of data in. I know a lot of the big organizations now, like, you know, the big four firms, are actually developing their own in-house. So it will only be their people using it. So it will only work with their data and with everything else. And I think, you know, now the cat's out of the bag and everybody's using it, people don't really know what the implication is, where all this data is going, and what's happening. And you're seeing shifts in it and changes. You know, the launch of the Chinese version, it's forget it now, DeepSeek, and that sort of competitive nature of it coming over the next couple of years. I think we're going to see a bit of a changing landscape with it. Obviously, more and more adoption, and it'll hopefully get better and better. But you're just wondering if there's going to be more legislation come in, because at the moment it's a bit of a wild west, isn't it? I think.
yeah, you'd have to think there'd be some sort of data protection legislation to AI at some point in time. So coming back to that as well, you mentioned again that notion of kind of how do people find out about what tech is out there. I know obviously wanted to mention this because we started talking about the workplace event specifically, which both our companies are exhibiting at, and you guys are doing a talk at as well. So obviously that's a great place for people in the FM world to come together and see all kinds of different businesses, whether it's tech companies like yourselves, office fit out like Empro that we spoke to recently, or Moneypenny as well. It's all those different things on there, isn't there? So be good to hear a little bit about what you guys are doing at the workplace event and what that talk's around as well.
Yeah, so I think it's, I keep on getting this the wrong way around and getting told off by marketing, but I think day one we're delivering a workshop. So the workshop is around trying to share and get people to share their experiences of common pitfalls of deploying workplace technology. So hopefully that workshop and that knowledge sharing will enlighten anyone that's on that journey of, okay, we're about to deploy something new, or we're thinking about this, or we're thinking about changing our workplace technology. So some of the things that they can think about there. And I don't know if you want to introduce.
I was just going to pull you up and say it's actually a collaboration zone on day one. So Mr. Will Fellows would have you over for that one, because it's a new feature for this year. They've added the collaboration zone. So yeah, it is going to be a workshop. So you were technically correct, but if you're looking for the workshop zone, you won't find it there. So. But yeah, it hopefully should be a bit of fun, because we're going to get people to talk about what experiences they've had. We're going to bring along some of our partners who've got a lot of different tech deployment experience as well. So hopefully it should be a bit of fun, but people will hopefully get a bit of a takeaway to take back to their business about things that have happened to other people, and what pitfalls not to sort of fall into, and so on as well. So we're almost linking that in with our talk at lunchtime on day two in, I think it's the Technology Hub, I believe. We want to cover, again, on that theme, building out from our workshop in the collaboration. So a bit of a talk about things from our experiences, what's happened, and basically a bit of a blueprint how to try and deploy tech and not fall into any of these pitfalls. So again, looking a bit deeper into, how to look for suppliers, what to avoid, and leading on our experiences, but also some of our partners' experiences as well. So we've got a bit of an overview of all different types of workplace tech, and hopefully give somebody something they can take away and think, right, well, I'm going to take this approach rather than this, if that makes sense as well. So
Amazing. It sounds like a really great event. I know Moneypenny have been before in the past, and I know you guys have as well. But there's such a breadth of different things, whether it's tech or whether it's people-based things or design-based things at that event. So if anyone's kind of in this world, there's lots to go and talk to people about and find out about. So one of the things that we ask all of our guests on the podcast as well is to recommend some business books that they found really interesting for our listeners to go away and have a read of. So it'd be great to hear if you guys have any recommendations you'd like to share there as well.
Yeah, I'd probably go for Unworking by Jeremy Myerson and Philip Ross. So reinventing the modern workplace. So that kind of takes it from post-COVID era and deconstructing old workplaces and old ideas and values and building completely new workplaces which are flexible, more human-centric and designed for purpose. And I think if you're a workplace stakeholder and provisioning workplaces, then it's a great one to have a look at because it encompasses hybrid working. One of my favorite sections, of course, technology as an enabler, but it also looks at cultural and leadership and how that's changed in the new modern way of doing that, and also, design on experience. So it's a good one.
Great.
And I'd go for Human-Centric Workplace by Simone Fenton Jarvis. I imagine a few people might mention that one because it's obviously a book that really focuses on, like we've talked today a lot about, is understanding what the people need. And for us, to get technology deployed, you've got to understand what problems you want to solve, and then really delving into, the differences in the workplace these days. I've seen Simone on a couple of talks as well, and, covering some things that if you didn't really properly understand it, having 5 different generations in the workplace, all sorts of different challenges around different people, and how an organization goes about dealing with that. And the organizations who offer a great experience, for the people, again, it works back to the customers. So that's something I think is definitely a workplace must read.
Amazing. Sounds great. Brilliant. Well, thank you for the recommendations. But yeah, we spoke about lots of great things today, loads of different points there. So thank you very much for joining us today and sharing those insights. And I'm sure people can get in touch to find out more.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thanks very much for inviting us, and it's a great place. And I don't think it's my first podcast, and it's certainly probably the first and last that I'll do in a treehouse.
Yeah, no, likewise. I've enjoyed coming down here. I've been down to the building a couple of times, and it's a great building. And I think obviously Moneypenny, we talk a lot about experience, and I think you guys really echo the experience of looking after your people. Every time I come here, I've talked to different staff. I've been to a couple of different IWFM events here, and it's always been a welcoming place. And I love the concept of the building and going into a bit of the history about, you see light out every window and all the sort of the science behind that. So no, thank you very much for the invite, and looking forward to seeing you at the event.
Amazing. Brilliant. Thank you both for coming.
Thank you, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of the On the Up podcast, brought to you from Moneypenny. Stay tuned for our next episode coming soon.